Hey folks, Judd Zolga, Derek Wetmore, 1500ESPN.com. Thanks for coming to the website. Derek, of course, covers the Minnesota Twins for us. And Derek, while the Twins are around 500 right now, 1-2 of 3 from the Yankees, actually there's some intriguing storylines developing with this franchise, but they aren't here. They're in the minor leagues. Why don't you get to some of these pitchers and guys in the minor leagues and what they're doing?
The two with the most immediate upside to me, Judd, Trevor May, Alex Meyer, both kind of tearing it up at AAA Rochester. I printed their stats because I know you're a huge stats guy.
I love stats. Small sample size, right?
No, 50. Alex Meyer's thrown 51 2/3 innings. That's not that small. He struck out 62 batters and walked 26. Opponents are hitting just 216 off of him. I don't really like to read too much into ERA because I don't know how hard he's getting hit, but he has a 3.31 ERA in the minors. Trevor May might be even better. 2.62 ERA in 10 starts with 54 strikeouts and 22 walks. I had originally thought when they traded for May, a lot of the prospect guys were writing that he is a kind of guy, he doesn't have enough pitches to be a consistent starter in the majors, that he might be a big arm for a big league team someday, but he's more of a bullpen guy. I think this year he's showing that he could very well be a future staple of the rotation. And so, yeah, you're right. You talk about that prospect pipeline. That's two starters. You don't pencil anybody in, especially as a pitcher, but they might look good in a 2015 Twins rotation.
The Twins being the Twins, Derek, when could we expect to see either of these guys at Target Field?
Sure. Meyer, it's tough because he's had injuries in the past, and I would guess, I don't know this for sure, I would guess the Twins are probably going to limit his innings this year. So whether that's call him up and then shut him down early or skip some starts, however you go about achieving that, I don't think he's going to throw 200 innings this year by any means.
Okay.
But we are getting into June. That's the point where you stop worrying about service time as much, and you just think, all right, if this guy's not going to qualify for the extra year of arbitration, get him up now. Trevor May is probably closer than Alex Meyer to getting a call-up. I wouldn't be shocked to see one of these two guys before July. I would say by the end of this month, you might see one of these pitchers.
Now, Meyer's been on a pitch count at Rochester about 80 or so, right, per game?
That's what I understand.
Would it make any sense if you think he's prepared to take that step, but you don't want to have him go up to 100 pitches? Would it ever make sense to call him up and say, okay, we'll let you pitch at Target Field, we'll let you pitch in the big leagues, but you remain on a pitch count of let's say 80 to 85 pitches per game? Would that make sense, or at that point do you just say, no, we prefer the player to do it in the minors?
Personally, I would do the latter. But think about this. You watched the Yankees over the weekend.
Yeah.
Dellin Betances. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but their setup guy, nasty stuff. Big fastball, got all kinds of movement. Former starter. I mean, every pitcher's a former starter. Talk about the intrigue of maybe having a guy like Alex Meyer throw one inning. I don't think necessarily the Twins are going to be competitive at the end of the season, but if you had a 7th, 8th, 9th inning of Alex Meyer, Casey Fiend, Glenn Perkins, that's a lights-out bullpen stretch.
As a 7th inning guy, you're not even saying start him. What I was trying to say was, would you call him up and start him?
I just wonder,
but keep him on the pitch count?
I just wonder. That's a good way to limit innings if you move a guy to the bullpen. But some teams worry about long-term starters jerking him around and making him a reliever. I don't know what the Twins will do, but there's enough intrigue there to make it worth talking about.
Pelfrey remains out. He had a groin injury at first, and now he has an elbow problem, correct?
Well, I went to the shoulder, and he was going to do a rehab stint for that, and now it sounds like they evaluated the elbow, and there's problems there. It's kind of a mess right now.
So he could be in trouble for the season. Correa on Saturday, actually, his pitching line was okay, but he walked a tightrope that scared everybody.
Yeah.
If this team can remain competitive, let's just even say around 500, but it's a competitive team, would either of these kids make sense to call them up and plug them into the rotation? Because it's simply at this point, they're just better pitchers.
Absolutely.
Some franchises, the Cardinals, would do.
Well, you worry about development, of course. I think 2014 is most important for development, which is why I think you're probably not going to see an Alex Meyer throw 200 innings, even though the Twins might be more competitive with him in the majors and finish out the season. But I do think there comes a certain point where you're this competitive this late in the season. If Correa's not giving you anything, or if Sam Deduno starts walking guys, or somebody gets hurt, any number of factors could happen that you could see these guys. Before we wrap up the video, too, there are two other prospects that I really wanted to talk about. Those two are probably the ones closest to the majors that I would keep my eye on. Two other guys to really watch. Jose Berrios, he goes by both.
Aliases?
He's pitching for the Fort Myers Miracle, so that's high A.
Okay.
He's pitched 56 innings too. 65 strikeouts compared to just 17 walks.
Wow.
Another great start the other day. He's got, if you like ERA, a 2.24 ERA, 5-2 record. He's got future upside, and I want to say I had his age. I thought he was 20. I don't have it right here. Anyway, very young kid, recently drafted, high upside because of the strikeout to walk ratio. Another one you want to watch for, Kenneth Vargas. I didn't think very highly of him coming into this season based on his numbers. Got to see him in spring training. Huge guy. He's really big, and so he became just kind of a storyline because it's a giant of a man. His numbers at AA New Britain are ridiculous this year. He's hitting .323 with a .398 on-base percentage, slugging .508. 8 home runs, 37 RBIs, and has pretty good what we call zone discipline too. He walks almost as often as he strikes out, so he's got a good eye at the plate. You alluded at the beginning of the video, reason for optimism from the Twins because they're about 500. The biggest reason for optimism, though, this farm system looks awfully bright right now.
Where will Vargas play when he's called up?
He's a first baseman by trade. Maybe he's a DH. I don't know if a guy that size you could really stick him in a corner outfield spot, but that's going to be part of the puzzle. The Twins have so many guys that are corner defenders right now that you might not be able to find spots for all of them. And that's where
there's too much.
Well,
there's too many things coming up.
Temper that optimism.
Except the current first baseman, of course, continues to start.
Sure, and I would also say if you have too much at one position, it frees you up to do trades. That's the reason they traded Ben Revere, Denard Span, because they had a ton of outfield prospects coming up, and so that's how they got Alex Meyer and Trevor May in the first place.
All right, we're done. Derek Wetmore right there covers the Twins. Check out his work, 1500ESPN.com. I'm Judd Zolgad. Mackie and Judd, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. weekdays on 1500 ESPN. Yes, you have one more point.
Final plug, too. I talked to Alex Meyer and Trevor May in spring training and did a little podcast.
We like to call it Sports Over Beers.
The Sports Over Beers podcast on the show page there. Just go to shows and Sports Over Beers, and there is an episode with those two young pitching prospects talking about their upcoming year. It's a little dated at this point now, but they had some interesting stories and stuff to tell too. So check that out if you're interested in this stuff.
We're done. Thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com.